Alrighty, what I'm going to be talking about today is how to filter a categorical variable, and we're doing this in the context of running a two-way ANOVA, in which we have two categorical variables as our independent variables and a continuous variable as our dependent variable. So the variables that we're going to be using are this individual collectivism scale from our dataset, Chapter 6B, Victoria.sav. This is from the Myers et al. Textbook. And we're also going to look at ethnicity, and we're going to use gender as well as our two independent variables. So as you run this data set, you would read the comments and then run through the first command. And this first thing that we're going to be doing is data cleaning, basically getting to know our data. What is our sample size? What are our cell sizes? So we're going to run this section first, and we're going to highlight it and then hit the green arrow and run it, and then we're going to see what we have. So this is our dependent variable. It's continuous. We get our descriptives. That's all good. We have no error messages. They would appear down here, and they would also appear at the bottom of our syntax file. What we're interested in looking at is our categorical variables. So here we want to make sure that all of our cells or frequencies for each level of the independent variable, of each independent variable that we're using that's categorical, is large enough. So typically we want at least 30 or more, or people argue, but about 20% of our total sample size. So this is a little less than 20%, but that's okay. It's 16%. And then we have 84% female. So gender is okay. We don't have any values in there that we don't want. When we look at ethnicity, though, we have a lot of categories with very small cell sizes. So unfortunately, we really can't include all of these. So we're going to include the largest categories that we can. So let's include our white category at 70.9%, our Latina or Latino Latinx category at 10%, and our Asian American Pacific Islander category at 7.8. We're not going to include these other categories because they're too small and we're not really comfortable combining the categories. So then what we need to do is to look at our data set, look at our ethnicity variable, and see how those categories were coded. So we want category 1, we want category 2, and we want category 4. So in your syntax file, I have already provided for you the code to use for filtering. So we're going to filter for category 1, category 2, and category 4. So we can do that right now, but first let's run this crosstab real quick so we can show those small cell sizes. So here basically we're seeing all of these are the cell sizes. They're too small. We can't run this really when we have less than 5 in each of these cross-tabulated cells, which we do. That's not going to work. So we're going to go ahead, and this explains what I'm doing here, and I've already coded this so that we're going to filter for ethnicity categories 1, 2, and 4. So let's highlight down to the filter, and let's run it. And there we have no errors. That's good. We filtered. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to rerun this section that we already ran for the categorical variables and for the cross tabulations. So let's rerun lines 39 to 59. So we're going to highlight those, click the green arrow, and now what do we see? Now our sample size is decidedly smaller. So let's first get to where we reran. So we ran our filter. Our sample size is now 329, where it was larger before. So it was 371, but now it's 329. That's okay. That's still large enough. And we have now 15% males, 84.8% females. And now we have 3 ethnic groups that we're looking at. We have 79, almost 80% of white Americans, 11% of Latino, Latina, Latinx, and 8.8% of Asian Pacific Islander. And while that's kind of small for our third group, we can still make that work in a two-way ANOVA. So there's our bar charts. And then when we look at our cross tabulations, these cell sizes are pretty small, but we're going to go ahead and run it anyway. So we would just continue now in our data set. We've already filtered. This is filtering across two variables, so we're going to skip that, skip all of this, and we're going to go down to line 131, and I've already filled in variables here. We're going to run all this all the way down to our missing values, and we're going to click on that, and then we would carefully read that output. There are no missing values, so that's good. And that this error message is just saying there's no missing values. That's good. And then we're going to run our outlier section. We're going to refer to page 87 in the book to see how to interpret that. And this is just for our dependent variable. So that's good. No errors. And again, it's with our sample size of 329. Then we're going to run our normality section. Again, we've already filled all this in. So we're going to run the whole section here. And again, it's looking at our sample size of 329. We can check that by adding this up, but we know that that equals 329, and we have no errors. And then we're just continuing to run the syntax file. And I see I forgot to fill in the DV here, so let me do that real quick. And we're going to run from our assumptions all the way to the end. So we're just running this whole thing, and then we're going to read through it very carefully as we are interpreting it, and then this finally turns off our filter. So we're running the whole analysis. We don't worry about this post hoc. It's just telling us there's only two categories of gender. Post hocs are only run when there's three categories. So we go ahead and run all of that. We got no errors. We do have somewhat small sample sizes, but that's okay. And that is our completed analysis with our filtered data. And notice that at the very top, we started with our full data set, and we have the audit trail. We know we have what we ran initially with 371 because we want to be able to tell write it up in our report that we filtered because the other ethnic categories were just too small. And then when we filtered, we also have our new sample size, which we have once we filter. So that's why we included both. So that's how we filter our data set with a categorical variable running our two-way ANOVA analysis. We would then export this data and interpret it.